Hi everyone, Kelvin here from London. Stereo Review X is my channel where I review mostly vintage equipment, speakers, amplifiers, maybe turntables, and maybe modern equipment. It's just about the sound for me. I'm just trying to get the best sound, and I've been playing around with sound literally my whole life. I've had tons of equipment, and I kind of enjoy the comparisons with equipment. I like changing amps and speakers and working out which one sounds better, and I also like to get a bargain. I've got to say that I bought a few things in my life that were a bit expensive and they were terribly disappointing, and so I've spent my life trying to find what sounds good for not a lot of money, which is actually pretty interesting in relation to what I'm going to review today, which is this Yamaha AX550 from 1991, 85 watts a channel. Now, I'll say it straight off the bat. I'm not bringing this up because it's a brilliant, fantastic amp, but I tell you what, this amp apparently people don't want it, or it's no one's heard of it, or it doesn't command a big price. And it's not a bad thing, and it's got a ton of features. It doesn't sound too bad. One of these was on eBay literally for a month recently here in England for £50. Yeah, nobody bought it. No one bought it. I nearly bought it. I nearly went and bought it because it's about 3 miles from my house. Because I thought, it seemed like a crime not to buy it. Though someone has lent me this one. This isn't mine, but I didn't buy it. But it was on there for a month. Nobody bought it. So anyway, let me do the features for you. And then I'm going to go into a lot of detail with the sound and compare it to other amplifiers. And you should, by the end of this, you should really know what this amp sounds like. Okay. I'll go through the front thing with you. It's got some interesting stuff, or useful stuff, Okay, so over here, bog standard bass treble, 2 pairs of speakers, subsonic filter. That's the ultra low bass getting cut out, if you don't know. Mono stereo. I always like having a mono stereo button. If only this. If you're listening to your hi-fi and you press the mono button and things don't get significantly worse, it probably means your amp's not very good. That should make a significant difference. It's useful for when speakers aren't working properly because you're sending them the same signal. So I like that. Balance. I've got a variable loudness control here, which frankly is not something I would use ever, but I've got it on flat and you might want to use it. Pure direct. Cutting out all the tone controls. That's a win-win, yeah? Small, but it's a win-win. Just a guaranteed better. You're cutting out all the signal path, that goes on in these resistors, these volume pots and bass and treble pots, not the volume pots, sorry. So pure direct. Over here, we've got phono, moving magnet and moving coil. So you can plug a turntable into here, yeah? What else do you have? Normal stuff, CD, tuner, phono, tape monitor, stuff like that. Other interesting thing on the back, pre-power little jumper hoops. So you can separate the preamp and the power amp on this thing. So you can plug in a big power amp and use this as a preamp, or whatever ways round, you can do it either way round. I really find that an interesting thing. Like, if you have 2 amps that have preamp, power amp separation, I would say try mixing them up, yeah? Use the preamp of one and the power amp of another. It might just be that sounds good in your room, or it might just be a better combination. So I always, that's a good thing as far as I'm concerned, the pre-power separation. Did I say 85 watts? I'm not sure if I did. And, a whole bunch of features, yeah? and you know, not super old, right? Not super old, so you know, it should have some life left in it. Okay, I'm gonna go get into detail here about sound. So what I did, I'm gonna do the thing I do with different songs, yeah? Okay, so first song I did, which is a Steely Dan song, yeah? Ricky Don't Lose This Number. Now, I've said this before, but Steely Dan, if you went round someone's house to buy a hi-fi and they play you Haitian Divorce Steely Dan, Steely Dan can make everything sound good. It can just make bad stereo sound good. So, you know, watch out for that. But anyway, I wanted to listen to that this time. So I listened to Ricky Don't Lose That Number, Steely Dan. What I've got here is good drums, yeah, good drums. Now, thing I would say about the sound of this amp, and I think this generalizes for Yamaha, certainly of the early period that I know, which is this and back into the 70s. They're very good at the sort of cutting edge of the sound, yeah? So they'll give you an immediate impression of having quite a lot of detail, yeah? So if you know what I mean, like the cutting edge of everything, of every drum, guitar strings, percussion especially, sort of cuts through quite a lot. Doesn't mean it's the ultimate best sound, but you know, that's what that's what I think is the Yamaha sound, really. Okay, second song I did, Bruce Springsteen, the E Street Shuffle. Okay, what have I got here? Tight bass and bass drum. Getting a nice, good feeling, that bass drum hit, yeah, that bass drum pedal. Good drums, leading edges. There's a load of congas and loads of percussion going off all over the place in that song. And this kind of exaggerates that, yeah? And the drummer also is incredibly busy. The drummer on that record, which is nothing to do with the sound. Okay, negative comment coming up here. Tiny sense of unreality, yeah? Now, this is kind of a common thing for me. This is my take on it. From the 70s to say this is early 90s, whatever they did with amp design and microchips, this era, you start getting just a tiny, you know, it sounds a little bit synthetic. And that generalizes to a whole load of amps. Maybe not the most expensive amps you can get, yeah, not the most expensive ones, but to a lot of mainstream amps, you get this slight syntheticness where vocals don't sound quite right. Snare drums to me don't sound quite right. And the general space is a little bit like black. It's not air, it's like black. It's like nothing, yeah, there's not something joining it together. And this is actually what I experienced too on the Arcam Alpha 8, which I was comparing this to a lot. And it has a similar thing going on when I compared it to, say, the NAD 3020, or, which is 1980, or my Sansui AU317, which is 1978. But it's still, you're getting a lot of detail. So, you know, I don't want to start slacking this amp off, really, but for the small amount of money it is, the high power, the features, a lot of people will be quite happy with this amp. I probably wouldn't, you know, but I'm a fusspot, and, you know, yeah, hopefully you'll get hold of all the details and the reasoning, and you can make your own decision. Okay. Next song, Take It Easy, the Eagles. Just a great song with loads of vocals, really good test song. I put here, technically all good. It's all there, the detail is there. A lot of fine detail. This is doing fine detail, yeah? But I'm not getting the emotion in the mass vocals in the chorus when they're singing Take It Easy, which is like 5 people singing, just not feeling the humanity in there. Yeah, just that's what I mean. Just this sort of technical microchippy kind of thing that happened a lot, I would say 80s, 90s, you know. And, you know, it just happened almost everywhere, I think. You know, I'm not talking about super expensive amps here. I also did Witchy Woman, the Eagles. Okay, this is interesting because you know, all these songs I know very well, which is why I use them again and again. Witchy Woman, Eagles. The intro is more drums than normal, and it's got a lot of bass guitar and a big drum fill until the song starts. With this amp, I got lots of drums. I didn't get the bass so much because I'm getting the cutting edges, because this one really gives you all those cutting edges. You know, it's kind of, you know, it's detailed. It's detailed. Okay. Too High, Stevie Wonder. Very detailed. Yeah. Good bass. Good bass. Yeah. Very slightly thin treble. Yeah. Compared to my ideal sound. Again, typical of the time. Typical of the time. And similar to what I get on that Arcam. Yeah. Okay, let me just quickly now try and do a comparison thing. I'll bring in these other amps. So here we have a couple of the amps I've been listening to. I've been listening to this to a lot with lots of different amps, doing lots of comparing and contrasting. Should have pointed out, been listening to these amps on here, Bowers & Wilkins DM4s, Rogers LS35A, and sometimes even these great big KEF 105s, yeah? So I've given this a thorough sort of analysis from various angles. Okay, let me do a thing about what it sounds like and how these three stack up really against each other. So I do it like this. The brightest amp with the crispest mid-range, maybe not the best sounding mid-range, is the Arcam. The Arcam is quite forward, quite sharp, might even be too sharp, yeah? The Yamaha and the NAD, you both say are very smooth. You both say are very smooth and untiring. The Arcam maybe is a bit tiring, you know, a little bit aggressive compared. What else would I say about the sound? Bass-wise, probably the Arcam's got a lot more. The Arcam and the NAD are probably best. This Yamaha is a sort of a nice, detailed, smooth, lots of that cutting edge detail. You know, there's lots of detail, both these amps, Yamaha and Arcam. Now, one of the things that changed between, say, the NAD and these two in those 10 years, and this sort of generalizes to amps from if you went for certain amps from the 70s to the 90s, by the time you get to the 90s, it starts getting kind of analytical. You might listen to it at first and go, oh, this is technically better because I can hear a few more details, you know, which is probably true. But you also start to lose a bit of authenticity in all of it, you know, in the mid-range, in the whole spectrum. And this is whatever has gone on in the manufacturing components in amplifiers. So to try and give you the picture, those two there, it's like the background sound is just black, nothing, yes, no connection, yeah. This NAD, it's like the space between sounds is like live air, and there's activity in it, however small. So it has this, just has a bit more sense of life, you know, in this NAD. And that generalizes to the best of the 70s amps, I would say, which isn't all of them, which definitely isn't all of them. I don't want to say all 70s amps were good. It's not true, not true at all. Lots of bad amps, but There was a certain quality that you got in the 70s which went away and got replaced by this analytical kind of thing. What else would I say? So bigger, sharper mid-range, smoother, generally smoother. Phono wise, probably I'd put the NAD and the Arcam are better than the Yamaha Phono if you're plugging in a turntable, yeah? Otherwise it's different. The Phono circuit is a separate, different circuit. So yeah, I mean, just to sum it up really, what I'm saying, you know, I don't want to give this amp a bad press because I think it's a bargain. It's got, if you can, no one seems to want them. You can get this for, you know, £75 or £50. I could have bought one the other day. It's a bargain. You've got a lot of features. It's a pretty nice sound. I am a fussy person. Loads of other people would think this is just absolutely fine and pretty good quality thing. For something that's kind of under the radar, you would say that. Just to say, if you asked me to pick one of these amps, I would pick the NAD, though the NAD is old, you know. You can get these NADs for maybe £150, but they're 10 years older and they, you know, they tend to break, let's say that, you know, they tend to need work on it. So, you know, bear that in mind when you think about which is the better bargain. Okay, I think that's it. So yeah, loads of other videos on my channel, reviews. If you're interested, please like and subscribe. Okay, thanks. Bye for now.